Well, hello, fellow followers. Welcome back to FanZcene. I am Greg, the host, as always, and with me today is one of my favorite guests. I absolutely do love when you come on all the time. Is director David Weiner of the In Search of Darkness movies, and now we're approaching In Search of Darkness 1995 to 1999. Tell us, Davis. Davis, I called you Davis. Tell us, David, a little bit about this.
Well, I'm with the Spencer Davis group, so it's easily confused, right? Oh,
Yeah.
hey, how's it going, Greg? It's good to see you, and thanks for having me back on. Yeah, we, just sort of pick up right where we left off, but ultimately, for those not in the know, I did a trilogy of 80s, 80s movies, 80s documentaries, so 80s horror documentaries. I'll start from the beginning. I know your audience knows, but did 3 documentaries. Thank you for holding up the all-important physical media that we love to make.
Yes.
They're deep dives into horror. Of the 80s, we did a trilogy, and now we're doing the 90s. But we did 90s in 2 parts. Mm-hmm. So I did 1990 to 1994, and now we're ramping up, and I'm in production right now for 1995 to 1999. And we actually were doing a pre-order sale from May 15th through June 9th, only at 90shorrordoc.com. And you can check out all the goodies that you get with the pre-order, and especially your name in the credits and all the cool swag you get and stuff like that. But, we have an amazing, insane poster from Dave Morrell, a brand new poster from Clayton Bench, who does the kid in front of the group of horror villains. Lots of cool stuff that looks great. And we're getting amazing interviews. Don't want to reveal too much about talent names because we want to keep it a secret for now, relatively. I'm sure I'll let something slip. But,
I'll get it out of you.
It's fun. It's fun. And, the movie's on its way at the tail end of this year.
I'm looking forward to it because I've enjoyed, as I held up the physical media there, I have enjoyed all of them very much, even the new one, 90 to 1994. This is the only one I don't have a slipcover for. I need a slipcover for that one. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed that. I'm glad that you guys keep making these. And I will have the links in the description down below to go to 90shorrordoc.com. So you guys, when the pre-sale hits, you guys can get you a copy and all that. I really dug that. And I think the last time we talked about how it was this like the untapped, what was it? Not the untapped, the underseen genre of horror. What was it? I can't remember the word.
Well, we were calling it the Lost Decade.
The Lost Decade. That's what it was.
For those who are huge mega horror fans, and it doesn't matter what decade, nothing's lost at all because it's a rich treasure trove of amazing films. But collectively, I think when people after the 80s, because it was such an amazing decade, which hogs the spotlight, I think a lot of people feel like there was nothing much going on, quote unquote, in the 90s until maybe Scream came along. And Scream didn't come along until 1996. So we decided that going 1990 to 1994 would put a spotlight on all the amazing studio stuff, indie stuff, shot on video, sold door to door at mom and pop video stores. All that stuff is so amazing in all different ways. And so we really celebrated that with 90 to 94, but now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of the decade, and that's what we're working on next.
Which I'm excited because I really in the 90 to 94, I really dug, those movies that you went into and stuff because yes, Scream came along and it changed a lot for better or worse in some people's minds. And I'm sure when we get to that section in your documentary, we're going to have a big whole talk about it. But I did like that we covered like the almost said Night of the Creeps. I meant Night of the Demons sequel, Dr. Giggles, the dentist movies. I loved listening to Mike Flanagan. I really enjoyed his. I really enjoyed you guys going over the TV series like X-Files and Tales from the Crypt and Buffy. I really enjoyed that. So we'll be seeing more as like stuff like that to go along with all the Scream hubbub in the second one.
Yeah, well, the fact that you point out that there's a lot of Scream hubbub, I think, is a very important point. Mm-hmm. When Scream came out, it really sort of it invaded the mainstream for horror. Mm-hmm. Now, that wasn't the first time that had happened, but it had been kind of a while. And so the influence of Scream just alone on other films and sort of the teen-driven slashers and meta films and storylines that sort of came in the wake of Scream, everyone wanted to be like that. But all the studios, most importantly, wanted to see what they could do that was just exactly like that. But you make a very incredible, a wonderful point, because there was more than just Scream. But Scream, like the 80s did just for an entire decade, Scream really sort of hogs the spotlight, because so many more who are just sort of mainstream casual horror watchers love that movie and flock to that movie, and the ones that they make today. Whereas there was a wealth of stuff that happened, in between the cracks, for lack of a better word. There was just so much going on. I mean, you got, from whether it's big stuff like From Dusk Till Dawn, or, The Sixth Sense, or the indie stuff that exploded. You have to remember, this was just like the tiniest thing. And the next thing you know, everyone was talking about the Blair Witch Project, But you have movies like, David Koepp, and The Stir of Echoes. You've got the Wishmaster movies. You've got a lot of straight to video stuff that we all loved just because the artwork was either bonkers or intriguing, like Jacko or Jack Frost, at the video store. Those are video stores for those staples. No one saw those in the theaters because I don't think they even went to the theaters. But everyone's like, all right, tonight's the night I rent Jacko,
Oh, I love Jack. I've got the Blu-ray of that, and the commentary from Fred Olen Ray and the director is absolutely insane. They get into a fight, and at one point the director leaves during the commentary. That alone sells the movie to me.
Well, that's another point that you make that's important, is that I think at face value, a lot of people might be dismissive of some of these movies, but the stories of the productions and maybe the relationships after the production still are not so good, but sometimes there's some sour grapes, but there's always some interesting stories behind the scenes. And when you're working on an indie movie, you're still working hard, regardless of how it looks, regardless of whether it makes theatrical or lands on the video store shelf, or literally you just have to sell it out of the back of your car. You got people together. You wrote a script. You got people together. You spent money to make a movie that's a feature, and you got across the finish line and finished it. And there's a lot of merit just with that. And if it's a great movie, well, all the better. We're still talking about it. If it's a not so great movie, you could see the merit in some of the elements of the movie, or you just think it's great marketing and artwork, or who knows what you think. But it's always a good time because it's part of the jigsaw puzzle of that whole era.
Yes, exactly. And you did bring this up, and it is one of my favorite 90s horror movies is The Wishmaster. I love the first two. Even 3 and 4, as bad as they are, which I think they came after the 90s. There's something about, but I absolutely love the first one. And I saw that. So this isn't, I don't think this is a spoiler, but I saw that you got Andrew, the Wishmaster himself, and like he still did the voice in that little package you guys put out. Divoff, yes. So what was that like? That was, to me, that I'm excited about that. I mean, yes, Scream, yeah, but Wishmaster, Andrew Divoff, that I'm excited about that.
Oh, he's amazing. He's really the guy is the nicest guy. All he ever did was play villains in his entire career, and he's still working and he's still doing stuff, but he's just kind of known for villains and bad guys and fringe characters. He told me, I played 2 good guys in my career, and I've never been so goddamn bored playing good guys. Bad guys are so much better. And he's still got the voice, but he really loves the vision. He feels he owes a lot to the horror community for that Wishmaster character, directed by Robert Kurtzman, and the effects master, and it's so fun when you sit down with someone who's actually really proud of their work and talks about the fun stuff that they did. He says, call me Andy. So now I think, is it Andrew or Andrew? But Andy is like the coolest guy in the world, but he's incredibly smart, incredibly intelligent, very well spoken, and having Wishmaster sitting there telling tales and constantly doing the voice. You just get chills down your spine.
I love
And
it.
he also is a really amazing artist. He brought some of his paintings. I looked at some of his paintings that he had, and he also crafted this Wishmaster ring that he actually sells. I'm not here to like shill for Andrew Devoff, but check out his site. He has these custom made Wishmaster rings, and he wore two different kinds at the interview. So check out if you go to at 80s horror doc at our socials. Scroll down about a week or week and a half or two, and you'll find the Andy Devoff promo. But he totally gets into character and uses his voice, and he aims to please, and he's a super super nice guy. I don't know. I'm talking all. This is going to be the Andrew Devoff show because
that's okay for me.
Can't say enough nice stuff about him. He's a gentleman and a scholar.
That's okay by me because I mean, yes, I'm a huge Scream fan, and like you mentioned before, that's something I like. People when they say what's a horror movie you can like watch Scream. I always tell them watch Scream, even if you've never seen them. It's a great gateway horror. But like, I love hearing stuff about like the Andrew Devoff and all that. And I may have to go to his website, buy me a ring. But I'm going to have to. I did not know that. But it reminds me of a great line that I just saw in another documentary. Not to skew here, but like the Leatherface documentary, where Bruce Campbell said that the people that play the bad guys are always the nicest people, and the people that play the heroes are always assholes. So, that's as far as I'll go with that. But
I've worked on my share of movie sets, and that's not far from the truth. Is all I can say.
So, but I mean, there's something about it. Like even the guy that played Leatherface,
Gunnar Hansen.
Yes, I'm sorry, Gunnar Hansen. Yes, he himself was an artist and a poet and all that. So like these bad guys really have something in them. But with that being said, like outside of the Wishmaster and all that, what are something on tap of these documentary that maybe we can look forward to that maybe we didn't quite know or miss because of Scream?
That we didn't quite know or we missed because of Scream. Well, I'm approaching this much like I did part one. I'll call it part one, but it's 1990 to 1994, that part. Yeah. If I learned anything from my evolution of doing the 80s trilogy of In Search of Darkness documentaries, it's that by the time I got to part three, I think I found the right balance, the right alchemy formula, what have you, of really amazing high level studio fare, a lot of indie stuff, and then all this straight to video, bottom shelf, dusty VHS box type stuff. Our audience, when I'm doing these movies, our audience is so diversified in terms of their knowledge and their own horror cred. Everyone's a fan of horror. There's no gatekeeping. You could be the guy who knows everything. You could be the girl who knows everything. You could also be the person who's just like, yeah, I enjoy them, but I don't collect them. I don't have them. I haven't seen every single one of them. Doesn't make me any less of a fan. But that mixture of real deep cuts of things you've never heard before and the stuff that everyone's known, but you want to learn a couple new things and revisit it or get to see the people who made it, talk one more time about it. That formula, I think, is the one that I think wins, at least in terms of the feedback that I've gotten. I always pay attention. I take the copious notes. What do people like? What do people hate? And so I did that for In Search of Darkness Part 1, 1994. I did that balance. And so the response has been overwhelmingly positive for that mixture. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I might have a couple surprises here or there, but this is essentially going to be, when you look at it, another 5 to 6 hour opus. So you're looking at, like, when all is said and done, you could just put in one and then put in two, and you could just inject, 11 to 12 hours of 90s horror into your vein.
It is. It's something you just do to turn on a rainy day. It really is. You turn it on a rainy day or any day, really. But like, and you get sucked into it. Because when I was watching the first one, I just get sucked in. I got sucked into all of them. I love them all. But no, I do see your evolution, because I still think it's hard to pick my favorite, but I do see in this last one, the 90s one, your evolution as a director and how it plays smooth. Even like being in the longest one, it did seem like play a lot smoother. Not that the other ones didn't, but it's just like you hit it, you know. And so that's why I was wondering, will there be any other focus on TV shows like you did in this one? Because
yeah. I don't want to reveal too much, but it's going to be similar. I mean, the first one I did a whole chapter devoted to it. So arguably that was sort of like a survey of the decade, not just the first half, but the whole decade. Because like Buffy the Vampire Slayer didn't come until the late '90s and that kind of stuff like that. But I'm talking about the TV series versus the movie. But there's still more TV to be had. So I will integrate some more. But I find myself with the same quandary I have every time I make one of these documentaries, is that you think, oh God, there's plenty to populate this movie, so we could do a big variety, like I've been talking about, of well-known and super unknown. But all of a sudden I find myself each year, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, I'm like, oh man, now I can't fit this. I can't fit this. I want to fit this, but then something really well known has to go. Something really well known. It's the obvious thing. I should put it in there, but then now a really obscure, eclectic thing that deserves to be there that's edged out. And if you look at this whole thing as I do it mathematically, there's really only so much space, even if I made no choices at all, and I just put numbers and times. For the amount of segments and then the chapters in between, I'm already running, past 5 hours, just by design, so I always have to make some tough decisions. So that's a long way of saying, I don't want to set up expectations. There will be some television, but it's really going to be a movie centric documentary about the era.
That's cool. That's cool. Cause like you did cover a lot of that in the first one. And I'm trying to think of like some, like in the mid 90s or late 90s, how much of the horror TV was actually still left by then. Cause they were all sort of running their courses by the end of the 90s, right? They'd been on the whole 90s.
Yeah. Well, like Tales from the it's kind of, I mean, this is sort of different, but like Tales from the Crypt, it sort of ended its run, but then they started doing the movies. They did Demon Knight, they did Bordello of Blood. That's not TV, but it's still Tales from the Crypt. And I, without revealing too much, I just revealed 2 movies that are going to be in the next one. You know what I mean? So
I'll get it out of you. I'll get it out of you.
All right. I'm going to do the rest of the interview like this.
No, I'm glad you are covering them. I do love Demon Knight. I know a lot of people think Bordello of Blood is maybe a little bit of the better movie, but I kind of like Demon Knight a little more personally. But that's my personal.
Well, some people, it's funny that you say that. I mean, again, I don't kill the messenger, but I've heard both things. I've heard people like Demon Knight more and Bordello less. All I know, and I could just give you a tease, is that Demon Knight was a great production in terms of making a movie. Bordello of Blood, it's well documented. I'm not the guy sort of saying this. It's well documented, especially on a podcast, that it was just a clusterfuck. and misery for almost all, And so that being said, whatever you think of the movie, which I think ended up being, if you don't know any of the challenges behind the scenes, you're like, yeah, this is cool. This is a fun movie. This is really good. Is it better than the first? I don't know. It depends on what your proclivity is. But underneath it all, boy, that's the real tale to be told. That's a real tale from the crypt.
Yes, there could be a whole documentary made on that for people out there. No, I do like Bordello. I do. I think it's good. I do think maybe there was one missed opportunity of getting Christy Swanson in there,
right?
Because it does have Jerry from Fright Night, and it has Corey Feldman, and it's got all that. It's just like, if you could have just had Christy Swanson, maybe even play the one part, I think you would have been solid gold. But I mean, exactly. I know about all the underlying stuff that happened with that movie and everything. But I am interested to see what movies you guys do have coming in this, because I know you mentioned those. You mentioned Blair Witch. You mentioned Did you say The Sixth Sense? I think you said The Sixth Sense
Yeah,
and stuff
I
like
mean,
that. Yeah.
these are all these are sort of the touchstones, from Dust Till Dawn and Sixth Sense, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna not list things because but Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Craft.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I mean, there's a whole. If you think of all the things that Scream kind of kicked off, in terms of Hollywood wanting to do similar style horror films that were really more horror entertainment than straight on horror. But a lot of the teen slasher was coming back, but everyone wanted to be like Scream in some way, shape, or form, especially with the
Yeah.
box office receipts. You
Yes,
know?
with all the
So,
money.
but yeah, I mean, there's a variety of different things, and I will. And Scream is considered mainstream when it comes to horror,
Hmm.
but Scream is something everybody loves. So Scream is, of course, just a big part of this conversation, but it's not the only thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
J horror was a big deal during that time. The found footage, starting with Blair Witch,
Hmm.
there's a conversation to be had. But another big conversation around this whole era is just sort of the big picture about, we're barreling towards the millennium. Y2K was genuine fears. A lot of
Hmm.
movies and a lot of entertainment had this stuff in mind. The internet was brand new and on fire. You started getting movies just about cautionary tales,
Yeah.
like about you never know who you're talking to on the other end with the internet. You still don't know.
I think I know what movie you're talking about, and
Yeah,
I love that movie. I love
yeah.
that movie.
So
D. Snyder.
yeah, exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So
Um,
it's I'm not going to promise what we're covering as movie segments or what we'll just touch on in a larger context conversation. But these were some of the big topics of the day. That were in response to what was going on in our world with advancements in technology. VHS was changing to DVD by the
yeah,
end of that decade. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and in pop culture that was and just socio-political elements of the world that horror loves to reflect, and
yes.
it was indeed doing that, or a response to certain things in the first half of the decade where maybe things did get a little too gritty, maybe things did get a little too real, maybe we want to diverge from that and get a little more into fantasy again. But some of these, like Seven,
Hmm.
or David Fincher, Seven and Fight Club, trying to sort of make commentary and entertainment based on some of the harsher realities that we were experiencing in the second half of the 90s.
Yeah. I
So,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
no, yeah, I was gonna say it is interesting because you see like the beginning of the '90s, the bright, the colorfulness, and sort of like you guys mentioned, the '80s hangover. It's like the first half of it's a bit little different. And then you get to like the second half when it's approaching Y2K, things get a little darker. People start dressing in more black. The color starts going away. People get a little more cynical and it gets a little more scarier. I mean, you go from like the Lawnmower Man to Brain Scan to Strange Land, which Strangeland is gets really dark in the world that you were talking about, in the world of the internet and all that. So like it does, like the '90s really did go from a change of like bright happiness to dark, like what is going on, and I'm interested to see that in the next half of the documentary.
Yeah, it's interesting. For people who aren't aware of Strangeland, Dee Snider, who is the lead singer of Twisted Sister, he made a movie that cast him as Captain Howdy. Nice throwback to The Exorcist, right?
Mm-hmm.
As Captain Howdy, who basically, this teen, I don't think I'm spoiling anything because this happens at the beginning. It's the setup, but
Yeah.
this movies like Sandra Bullock in The Net, or Strangeland, where they were really capitalizing on the genuine, cautionary tale of don't let your kids play with this new technology without at least looking over their shoulder. The same thing to this day. We take it for granted because it's been around so long, but
Mm-hmm.
you gotta be watching what your teens absorbing on social media and the internet and who they're talking to. It remains a pervasive problem.
It does. It does. Now I know you've mentioned this a few times, and I am interested to see who. I know you're not going to spoil on it, but I am interested to see who you talked about. But from dusk Till Dawn. It's one, it's one of my favorites because I've always been under the assumption of that movie, the less you know about it, the better. Because you don't, I don't even want to say right here in this. I'm sure people who have watched my channel have seen it, but for anybody finding it new on the YouTube's here, the less you know about that, the better, because it is a very much, it can be a very dark, vulgar, nasty movie that plays on horror on two different levels between the brothers and then where they end up. So
if you've seen Sinners, I mean, Sinners is amazing, and I've been watching that. I watched that as I was watching it, I'm just like, among other elements, there's From Dusk Till Dawn in this, very much so, if you think about it, especially for those who are unaware of what's to come. You know, there's no way I can cover that film without completely spoiling the tail end of what ultimately happens. But I think I envy the people who get to see that movie not knowing anything about it and think it's a heist movie with Tarantino and Clooney, because it's a heist movie with Tarantino and Clooney, and they should watch it because it's really good. Maybe other things happen, but I don't know. It's like I'm talking to nobody, because everyone who's looking at this knows what goes on. But I envy anyone who gets to watch that, and there are going to be plenty of people, because this is all about curating stuff for a whole next generation, as much as it is about horror fans getting to revisit their favorite movies. So but I think that one's just going to be, I'm going to say one more thing just about all that stuff. I was talking to I have a 13-year-old kid, talking to him about Silence of the Lambs, because I just made some Silence of the Lambs. I quoted a line, and he laughed, and I said, "Do you know what that's from?" He's like, "That's from Silence of the Lambs." I'm like, "Very good." And he's like, "Well, but I don't get it." So I had to explain, it takes the lotion, the lotion on the skin.
Put the lotion on the skin.
And then he's like, "Well, tell me more. Tell me the ending. What happens?" And I'm like, "I'm not going to tell you. I don't know if you're ready for this movie, but I don't want to spoil it for you." He's like, "No, spoil it for me." I'm like, "No." He's like, he insisted. Anyway, long story short, I said, "All right, all I'm going to say is the heroes win, the villains lose." And he's just like, "Well, that doesn't give me anything."
No, you got to see the movie. You got to see, because like From Dusk Till Dawn, it definitely is. It's a multi-genre horror film. It's a multi-genre film. Period. It's action, horror, comedy. It's psychological. It's mental. It's all kinds of things. It's like I do. I wish I could be a fly on the wall watching. Well, I guess we do that with YouTube now. People do the reaction videos. It's like when people see it for the first time and thinking it's one thing, and then it becomes something else. And so that was something very creative in the 90s, that I don't think had ever really been done up until that. I'm sure there had been stuff other than that, but it just felt like that was one of the ones that really hit.
It was very much an outlier based on its structure. I agree completely. And the reason, just to put a fine point on bringing up my kid and wanting to know the ending of Silence of the Lambs, demanding to know it, I think that this sort of, I wanted to kind of illustrate a point that I think there's a whole generation of young kids who are so used to a spoilerific world where everything is spoiled and becomes a meme before they've even seen the movie, or something like that. And so I don't think they can fully appreciate or seek out the organic experience of seeing something, knowing nothing. Saying, "Oh, that's interesting to you? Stop. Don't watch the trailer. Don't even look at the poster. You want to see it? Just go." And it'll all be new and exciting, and you'll be emotionally connected to it a lot more than if you're like, "Oh, I saw that in the trailer, and I know this is coming up, and I know that the good guys win and the bad guys lose," or vice versa.
Yes.
I digress.
No, I get you. I mean, like my nephew and his girlfriend who are in their 20s. I can't remember the movie we were watching, but she goes, "Oh, so that's where that came from." I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I saw that on a meme." I was like, to see the movie. That's it, the young people.
Well,
But
if memes are powerful enough to make people curious to seek out the original movie, I think everyone should figure out, what that Robert Redford with the beard going like that, and we're like, oh wait, maybe what's that from? Wait, that's Jeremiah Johnson. Oh, that's a movie. Okay, it's
yeah,
like, if these are little beacons from films of the past, inspiring people to sort of check it out, maybe that's something to be said about that.
yes,
Some
I
virtue,
agree.
some virtue.
There is. I mean, as much as I could be a boomer, an old guy about it, like memes and TikTok, at least it does get some of them to watch stuff and everything.
Yes,
And
it's their contemporary language that we dismiss arguably, but it's not going away. So if you could use it, to discover new stuff and to help curate any way possible, even if it's the quickest little thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I was reading an article on Fangoria earlier about possible return of the video store. They were talking about the possible return of the video store, which I'm happy. And they were talking about, speaking of the young people, that's what rigged this up, because they were talking about like there's a video store over in England, and there's I think one in Boston. They said it's mostly the younger generation are coming in because streaming's all they've known, and they're going back to it. So you guys did bring up the video store in the first half of the 90s. And like you said, it was going from VHS to DVD. So do we cover a little more of the video store like that this time around?
Yeah, listen, you're asking all the what do I'm going to do? What I'm going to do? I'm going to chastise you a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the discussion, and it's a big part of the conversation there. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on that or cover it in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's really cool that in contemporary times, what I've really come to recognize is that the current this is again from my little chair with my country time lemonade saying, oh, these kids these days, but the current, younger generation are much more dialed into experience-based things. You go to an event and it's like a pop-up store or a pop-up bar or experience or something like that. I think a video store is similar to that. It's literally like, well, this whole older generation, all they do is drone on and on about the glory days of DVD and Blu-ray and going to the video store. What is it? What's to it? I need to know now myself. And there's sort of an attraction if you turn that into, some sort of event. There's a great place near me in Los Angeles called Vidiots, where they have they have screenings. They have an actual movie theater next to their video store, and they're constantly doing screenings with Q&As, and they're revival screenings, but also new films as well. But it's amazing because it's like that's how I would want my video store if I ever did it. Have a great little cafe, got the video store there, but always be loving and appreciating and promoting and talking about film there on the premises. And that's, I think what people are looking for.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that because like with the way the video stores are, the ones that are coming back and the ones that still exist, they offer more than just the video. They offer more than just this, which is there, and that's why you're there for. But they give you like the theater, they give you the ice cream, they give you the cafe, they give you the popcorn and stuff. And I think that's a great way to bring back the video store. I know that's a little off topic from the documentary, but I was trying to pry something out of you, maybe.
But it's part of this story of the '80s and the '90s. I mean, the '90s, the bigger story there is Blockbuster Video. By that point, had just invaded like a fungus, and that was Blockbuster Video, Hollywood Video. There was more than one chain beyond Blockbuster. But they really were not only edging out the mom and pop shops, but they were also dictating content. They're just like, well, there was a whole controversy to some during that time about how Blockbuster wanted to edit out. They wanted to censor. They wanted to edit films so they were family friendly. And so filmmakers were up in arms because they're like, no, I made this film to be like this, and it's got its rating to warn you of the content. But if you're going to put it in there and edit out this one scene because you object to it because you feel like it's too violent or too sexual, that's not your place, Blockbuster, but
Yeah.
Blockbuster was very involved in the film industry. They were reading scripts to determine what kind of movies they wanted to, planning ahead, showcase and do deals with and all that kind of stuff like that. So Blockbuster Video really did kind of become the enemy at the time
Yes.
to many, but also we have fond memories of it because they were on practically every other block.
Yeah.
They were in everyone's neighborhood. That was the place you could go, for lack of a better word. It's like you don't say, I'm going to search engine for the information.
Yeah.
You say, I'm going to Google it, right? There's more than one search engine other than Google. But at a certain point, just in terms of the lexicon, people just say, oh, you went to Blockbuster on Friday night. Oh, you Google this to find out, blah, blah, blah.
Yes. Which is funny because we've reached that point again in streaming with editing movies and making sure they're family friendly for everybody and dictating. And it's what killed the video store, Blockbuster, eventually in the end. And we're kind of almost circle again with the streaming. Maybe that is why video stores might have a resurgence, the mom and pops anyways. You never know. But I remember that with the John Walters film that they edited. I can't remember the name of the movie, but I remember he got really upset over that. I think Tracy Ullman was in it. I cannot remember the name of the movie, but I think Tracy Ullman was in the movie. But yeah, with that being said, with the 90s, is there anything, because we're approaching some time here, is there anything that you are willing to give us to entice us a little more for May 15th to go to 90shorrordoc.com to buy the pre-sale? Is there anything you can entice people watching?
Are you not entertained? Have I not enticed you enough?
I'm ready. I'm going to buy it. So.
Well, what's cool about the process of having a pre-order versus we make the film and we sell it when it's done, which we do, of course, also, is you get to be part of the process. This one's a little more condensed because we're still we intend to have this film done by the end of the year, like we normally do. Normally what we do is we do the pre-order in October of one year. Then we have the year to make it, and then the following October we have the final sale. Either way, whether it's the pre-order or the final sale, you get to have your name in the credits. You're going to have an opportunity, like we have done in the past, where if you want to record a video of you talking about your favorite late 90s movie, or how you love the genre, we'll select things and we're going to put those in the end credits as well. This time we have a lot more. We try and mix it up every time because we know a lot of folks come back to each sale. So of the things that we're going to be offering, we're going to try and mix it up and have a little different stuff. So if you go to 90shorrordoc.com, you'll see we've got some different stuff that we're going to do. But yeah, like, certificate or 2 amazing posters, slip cases. And if you missed part 1 of 1990 to 1994, you can also buy that. You could also get, if you already got that, but you want to have it in one nice, neat slipcase, well, just sell the slipcase by itself, and you can have it fit 2. But you could also buy the 2 together in a slipcase. The more we're doing this, the more variables we have, which is a good thing. T-shirts and so on and so forth. So I think if you are a fan and you appreciate all this stuff in terms of the physical media and something that looks amazing on your shelf that you have your name on, there you go. Exactly. By the way, we never did a slipcase for part 1, which is why you don't have one. But we did make a slipcase for all 3 can go in at the same time.
Yes.
And so, yeah, if you missed the 80s trilogy, you could also buy that. If you have run out of space completely and you're like, oh, this stuff sounds great, but it's not for me because I have no room, you can get a digital copy or bundle as well. So there's a lot of options. I hope that's enticing enough. But in terms of the content, we're still in production. We've got a lot of amazing stuff. It's been very, very fun. More fun to be had, more names to be announced. We're just at the very beginning in terms of like who we can say has been in this documentary. We're teasing a little bit as we get to the sale. So if you want me to reveal a couple names that we've already teased or that we're
Go
teasing,
ahead.
I'll do that. Like, I think it's super cool that we have Eduardo Sanchez, the co-director of the Blair Witch Project. Amazing, nice. Amazing conversation I had with him all about that. I have, who else do, we talked about Andrew Devoff. I also got to talk to Steven Weber. Steven Weber, who stars in Mick Garris's The Shining as Jack Torrance. He's also in Dracula Dead and Loving It, if you love Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
The world's greatest impalement, with an Evil Dead style return to his face afterwards. It's very, very cool that some of the people have stepped up to be part of this. And Steven Weber, he's like a monster kid through and through. He's known for Wings. He's known for his comedy. But he loves horror. He grew up reading Famous Monsters. He loves all that stuff. He watched all the Hammer horror movies and the Universal monster movies. And he even did, he recorded the audio book for Stephen King's It. And he did that as well. And so it's kind of fun when you discover not only is this person part of a really cool mini series that Stephen King approved and had to have done to distance himself from the Kubrick movie, that is of course iconic, but to hear his tales about that, he talks about picking Stephen King's brain because he'd be reading something in The Shining, and he's like, wow, what a paragraph. Wait a minute, I could talk to Stephen King about that downstairs. And hey, Steve, you wrote this. Tell me about it. What were you thinking?
Explain it.
Anyway, some fun stuff.
All right. Well, that will be interesting because we know, like you mentioned, the Kubrick version and that version. It'd be interesting to see the talks on that because I know how some fans feel about that. But like you said, it doesn't matter who you are, what type of horror fan you are. It's in there for everybody, no gatekeeping and all that. But I am excited for that, and I appreciate you, and thank you for your time as always, David. It's always great to talk to you. Like I said, you really are one of my favorite guests I have on here because I love talking this horror stuff, and I love physical media and stuff. It's great. It's what I'm into. It's what I grew up on. But as always, I will have the links in the description. 90horrorsdoc.com. Say that 3 times fast.
90s 90horrorsdoc.com. I stumble over it. See, I can't even say it either.
Yeah, exactly. I will have those in the links in the description for May 15th, which is probably when this will drop. It'll probably go on that day. But I thank you once again for your time. There was something I was going to ask you, but I better not because I don't want to. I know you were looking for Lou Diamond Phillips.
Do you have him there?
No, I was just curious if you ever got a hold of him.
I make no announcements until the very end when we have our entire cast set. Then I got to interview. I feel like I'm being Harrison Ford. I am no Harrison Ford, but I interviewed Harrison Ford right after Star Wars The Force Awakens was announced that they were doing it, but they did not announce the cast. But there was rumors that the original trilogy cast were coming back. And I had spoken to Mark Hamill, and he let the cat out of the bag, and he told me, and I got to break that news. And just conveniently, I got to sit down with Harrison Ford for when he did 42, the Jackie Robinson story with Chadwick Boseman. So I got to ask him, about it. And I think by that time, Disney had clamped down hard, especially after, Mark Hamill just said, yeah, we're going to be back. All of us are going to be back. Yeah. And I asked, Harrison Ford, and he just goes, and I'm like, well, Mark Hamill said, he's like, it's literally what he did. You can find it on YouTube. It's pretty amusing.
That's funny. But thank you. Seriously. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this documentary. To everybody watching, make sure you guys go to the 90horrordoc.com. Check it out. Pre-order. Share this video out. Subscribe. Always support physical media because it really, truly is the superior format. Godspeed, everybody. Catch you on the next one.